What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more Propagandhi, and I wanted to give a shout out to Ryan. He suggested this song, and it's a great suggestion as I destroy the other chair. But yeah, we're going to listen to Duplicate Keys Icaro, an Interim Report. This is the final tune on the regular album of their Failed States. I do have access to some bonus tunes. When I bought this, I was given like a download link in addition to buying the physical copy, and the download link included 3 bonus tunes, so there are actually a few more. I'm not sure if that's the Challenger, but it kind of feels like that's what that's supposed to be. In any case, and it does, in some respects, the album has a sort of Koyaanisqatsi feel. You have failed states, like life out of balance, things aren't working if we continue in our ways. I will say, this tune, I really enjoy it, in part because I've always been interested in neuroscience, and I believe this song fundamentally is about what it is to be a sentient, sapient creature, and ultimately the way in which we try to navigate the sort of spinning loom that is our mind. And what we perceive is that a path to outer space, whether that is in a sort of scientific sense or a metaphysical sense, or is that simply like an article of faith that is actually falsifiable quite easily, empirically, outside of your mind. Ultimately, it speaks to the way in which sometimes in cognition it feels like we're not so much individual entities, but we're all tapping into the same sort of, universal essence or whatever it is. So the song makes reference to an Icaro, which I believe is like a, what's the correct term? Like an Andean, I don't know if it's Quechua, but basically I think it's like a South American, like, I think in antiquated times, Western anthropologists would have used the term medicine man, but I think it's ultimately like a spiritual leader of some kind that is sort of divines things through thought and through, I don't know if other cognitive processes like trance-like states and so on. So I think the song is getting to the way in which it's hard to make sense of what is happening in our brains, whether we're really tapping into reality or whether we're tricking ourselves, and ultimately this traces back to electrochemical processes like duplicate keys are, it's a reference to a type of like synaptic connection where there are multiple neurotransmitters, I think, flowing in both directions. So I think it relates to the way in which at some point in the evolution of humankind, our brains sort of developed to a certain point such that the cognition allowed for a range of thought and ideology such that, our religions, our science, our reflective and introspective art and poetry and so on, suddenly had the grounds on which to form, develop, and ultimately crystallize. But ultimately, again, it's easy to be caught by our own confirmation biases and so on. So the song, I think, gets to both the more positive and the more dangerous or perhaps negative aspects of what it is to be a sentient, sapient human being who is cognitive and deliberative and up in our brains. And, to what degree are those individualized experiences, or are we all sort of tapping into something and we're all, like, there is no you and I, we're all just part of some collective, which again, the song makes reference to. So I love that the song sort of comes at it from a position that, maybe some of these things are tapping into processes that we just don't yet fully understand, whether you want to see that scientifically or metaphysically. But also maybe we're fooling ourselves and allowing the cognitive sort of tools of our brains to see what we want to see, and it's, the way that we're out of step with reality is in part a product of the fact that, we can trick ourselves with our confirmation biases. So, as someone who grew up, my dad is a neurologist and my mom worked for his firm, and so like I grew up like hearing about brain conditions and things, not that they talked about their work to me, but obviously I grew up interested in what my parents did, and so I ended up being more perhaps interested in cognition and neuroscience than maybe your lay person, your lay child, if you will. So yeah, as a person who's grown up interested in that type of science, I find this song to be very impressive. One final note, the music is really fantastic. It's just that, later Propagandhi, it's like fast and hard punk rock, but it's mixed with kind of like an edge that almost sounds a bit metal, which again, once Todd joined the group, I think that has become very much the case, but even the way in which that is the case, I think, has evolved over the albums since he's joined. And lastly, I would say there's a poetry to this song. There's a real, like, again, I think, some of the guitar riffs, you could say, oh man, it reminds me of some of the guitar riffs that Chris did going all the way back to their first album, How to Clean Everything. But in another respect, I think the song is miles away from How to Clean Everything, in that the lyrics, I think, are more poetic and more abstract and sort of, maybe interpretive. I think there is a specific meaning to the song, but I think it is more allegorical and sort of, figurative in many ways, whereas I think a lot of songs on How to Clean Everything were right on the nose, and there's nothing wrong with that. I love that album too. But yeah, this feels like, they entered a realm where, Bad Religion and some other punk rock bands, that I've kind of put them, maybe not on a pedestal, but I say, hey, I really think their lyrics are special because they write with a poetry, and they sort of make these metaphors and allegories. This song is very much a great example of that. So shout out to Propagandhi, not only for everything they've done over time, but the way in which a song like this sounds very mature compared to songs on How to Clean Everything. And again, I do love that album. So in any case, let's get it. This is from the album Failed States by Propagandhi. It's Duplicate Keys Icaro, an interim report. And I should mention, like, that subtitle, it relates to the fact that, like, it's all ongoing, right? We're still studying neuroscience. We're still studying the universe. We're still studying humankind anthropologically, historically, physiologically, neurochemically, and ultimately each one of our lives are, finite, ephemeral, even transitory. And so we are ultimately limited by our mortality and by our fragility as a species and so on. So it's an interim report in that, this is ongoing. This is not we now know everything, we've got everything sorted, and this is the final report on everything that relates to human cognition and biology and potentially cosmology and metaphysics and so on. So again, I do like that subtitle, an interim report, but I'll stop talking and we'll get to the damn song. This is Propagandhi, Duplicate Keys Icaro, an interim report from their 2012 album Failed States. And I believe this is actually like an Icaro doing like a breathing exercise that gets them to this like trance-like state and so on. I think that's what that is. Like a hallucinogenic theme that with the Icaro that kind of runs through the lyrics. God, sort of like a digital moment from there. Echoed, fragmented vocal. precision musically is incredibly impressive. Listen to that guitar. Better than I remember. It's better than I remember. And what a great song to end an album on, right? The book ending. And the breathing out of the perhaps hallucinogenic smoke. Yeah, I really love that. In fact, I remembered enjoying it, but that was a even more incredible experience than I was recalling. So yeah, shout out to Ryan, shout out to this amazing band. Again, this is 10 years ago now. It's like their second most recent album. But yeah, ultimately it is a decade ago, so it's crazy how time flies. But a really cool song. I think they played that when I saw them for the Victory Lap tour. Again, most of the songs in that concert were from Victory Lap, but there were some older tunes, and I think that was one of them. But yeah, just a really cool tune. Once again, shout out to Ryan. Do let me know what you think. Again, the way that I take lyrics, it's never definitive, it's never authoritative, it's always just, this is what I've heard and understood as I've listened to it. But as I mentioned in reactions to a number of different deep dives that I'm doing, one of the most enjoyable things about doing this channel is I've come to sort of enjoy that dynamic where I bring what I know and feel about a song to the reaction, and then people comment and sort of give me their insight and opinions and sort of experiences with the tune over time. So it's sort of this exchange, which again, to me is much more enjoyable than forcing myself to try to read up on everything, and then I gotta double check to make sure that one website isn't giving information that's not entirely accurate and so on. So yeah, I do enjoy that dynamic. So if you have a different take, or if you have a similar take and just want to sort of elaborate the way that you've thought about it, do let me know. Other than that, I will see you next time. Peace.